Alright everyone, now it's time to talk about why I think a red wave at this point, less than 3 weeks out from the midterms, is inevitable. And by red wave I mean a pickup of 30 seats in the House for the Republicans, a picking up of at least one Senate seat to give them at least narrowly that chamber of Congress, and at least 2 gubernatorial slots. Originally it would have been 1, just get any pickup that you want, but they're ahead handily in so many potential pickup races and holding ones that the Democrats wanted to be competitive. I don't think it'll even be close. I think the GOP breaks even at 3 gubernatorial pickups at this point. That's a red wave. Anything beyond that just increases the size. If you get like 25 House seats, keep the split in the Senate, okay, the GOP picks up the House, but it's not by an overwhelming margin. They'll be let down at the end of the night. By the way, if that does happen, I don't think that it will, but if it does, they will dogpile Trump. Oh, Trump should have shut his yap and everything would have been fine. Guaranteed. I don't think you'll get to see that play out because I think the opposite will happen, but if that is the case, it is. If a blue defeat, a crushing defeat, a true red wave happens, look for the Democrats generally to dogpile Joe Biden. I mean, they're not entirely wrong. He drags the down-ballot races and has helped to cripple the economy. There are other issues, such as the weakness of certain candidates. Here's why I think a red wave is inevitable. I'll look at the Senate. The Democrats wanted, I think, Georgia and Nevada to be the break-even points for the Senate. It would give them a slight advantage. Instead, it's looking like it might be Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. In the gubernatorial slots, they had 3 seats that they desperately wanted to pick up. These are high-profile governors, gubernatorial slots. Number 1, to knock Kemp out and get Stacey Abrams in Georgia. They have effectively ceded that race. They've given up. They've withdrawn from it. You see nobody predicting that she wins. They really wanted to get rid of DeSantis in Florida. They really want Christ to win, which is hilarious because Christ is, I believe, a former Republican, literally, and is a neocon. So they're backing the non-MAGA Republican in Democrats' clothing because of DeSantis derangement syndrome. There's virtually no chance for Christ there either. I think the gap has risen to 7 points. Abbott's even further ahead. He's pushing double digits against Beto O'Rourke. There was a brief moment months ago where Beto was within the low single-digit range, but there has still never been a single poll showing him leading. Beto O'Rourke's career won't be over, though. He's going to become a perennial candidate in some other sense. Don't worry about Beto. He'll keep the cash grab going because that's quite literally what he's doing. He's a bored midlife crisis actor, and he knows that he's not going to win. His real attempt was against Cruz. His presidential bid was a joke to get attention and money so that he could go after Ted Cruz at a moment where the Republicans in the Senate were having problems. He didn't quite make the cut. His viable political career is now over. He will not win. Because you can't pick up any of those potentially, at least when the Republicans had less support, potentially vulnerable gubernatorial seats. A year and a half ago, they were aiming for them. A year and a half ago, it looked like they had a lock on Arizona. A year ago, it looked like they had a lock on Nevada. Nevada has moved more blue over the last few decades. It looked like they had a lock in Oregon. It looked like they had a lock in Pennsylvania. Are you seeing a pattern trending here? Name a race in which the Democrats have actually gained significant momentum. They are up only by single digits in the New York gubernatorial race against Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin in the latest poll was only 2 points behind Kathy Hochul. If the Republicans in New York, who have been demoralized for an entire generation, think that there's a possibility of victory, you can look for the GOP to have massive turnout, and Zeldin could feasibly become the governor of New York. A flipping there, I think, would trigger a landslide of outrage among lay Democrats. In fact, the New York race could be the catalyst for the party finally crashing, burning, and being reborn in a new form. Might be a far-left form, just give up the shtick that you care about union workers and stuff and proclaim yourself socialist. Or they could purge the far left. They could become more of like a Joe Kennedy party and say, look, we've been tampering around with these leftoids for long enough. It's time to stop giving them the welfare breadcrumbs because clearly they're too fickle. They're completely out to lunch, and we're alienating every independent voter in the country, including people who agree with us on some mainline issues. I think a red wave is inevitable based on several races. Number 1 is New York gubernatorial. That is not a healthy gap. In the last election, you had, I think, a 14-point gap of victory for the Dems. Before that, it was more than 20. Now you've got 5 points, maybe. You'll be lucky if you get 10. I don't think it'll be in the double-digit range. At the very least, your voting coalition has shrunk drastically. We're talking about the loss of over 1 million voters. New York is a beefily populated state. Just to be clear, you're talking about a 7-figure loss of voting support, election over election. That's significant. Number 2, Pennsylvania. While I still think that Fetterman has an advantage, and polling bears this out, barring any skew in the final results, and I think there will be one, that would give it a 50-50 goddamn sum game, but I'm not going to predict on that one until right before the midterms. Mehmet Oz is arguably close to tied with Fetterman. Fetterman, months ago, was up by near double digits. Kari Lake was not favored to win over Katie Hobbs initially. She got pounded and hounded. The legacy media is constantly gunning for her, so you still get a small advantage. Now, it's Arizona, so that doesn't necessarily mean great things for the GOP MAGA candidate, but she definitely has an advantage. It's a systemic one. Lacking those 3 main gubernatorial pickups, getting combated in Oregon, getting combated feasibly in Wisconsin, having trouble literally across the board with a president whose approval now appears to be going back down a little bit. His disapproval has notched upward. With a congressional generic ballot showing a 3-point Republican advantage, you said the new slew of polls is almost solidly GOP, if not by a huge margin. The registry advantage for the Republicans, I spoke about that a year ago. The advantage in early voting, if you look at Pressler's Floridian results that he's been putting out regularly, the GOP is almost breaking even with early voting. That is the number of ballots returned. If the GOP has higher than normal turnout in early voting, what the hell do you think will happen on Election Day? People gas their cars up one last time, they say thanks Joe Biden, and then they go to the polls. That's going to be a kicker, by the way. Late-breaking intention. People who are fundamentally undecided. Any of them that go to get gas or a snack before they go to the polls are likely to vote Republican. If they didn't, if they're not hungry and their car was gassed up a couple of days ago, they're more likely to vote Democrat, I suppose. So we'll see what happens. How many people have don't get hangry, have a Snickers or something beforehand. And then you can see the shrinkflation along with the real inflation at the same goddamn time. What about potato chips? Are they doing that thing again they got sued for back in the 70s? It's called shrinkflation, where they have the product, they put less of the product in the same packaging, and eventually it becomes so obtuse and obscene that the court stepped in and said you can't do that anymore. Like you'd open the cereal bag and the cereal would maybe half fill the box. I think that they were doing that in the 90s a little bit too. I remember opening those cornflakes. They weren't exactly efficiently packaged. You could have knocked a couple of inches off of that cardboard. God, when I get back to the U.S., I guess I'm going to have to check breakfast cereal. I won't eat it, though. I'll feed it to the birds or something. Never eat that sugary crap. That's about all. Peace out.